Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar on the Connecticut's Kid Governor program. Tonight's session is Beyond the Election, Year-Round Connecticut's Kid Governor and Civics Opportunities. We're very happy to be speaking with you and to share some more information about how you can enrich your experience with the Kid Governor program, both this fall and into the entire school year. My name is Brian Cofrancesco, and I'm the head of the Kid Governor program at the Connecticut Democracy Center at Connecticut's Old State House. And I'm joined with me tonight by two colleagues, Samantha and Jacob, and I'll let them each introduce themselves.
I'm Jacob Orca, and I'm one of the Kid Governor assistants.
I'm Samantha Gorski, and I'm one of the other Kid Governor assistants.
So tonight we'll be talking about lots of different ideas and opportunities for you to bring into your school. As we mentioned, we're from the Connecticut Democracy Center, and we are a nonprofit based out of Hartford that focuses on providing a lifetime pathway to active citizenship and the tools for taking informed action. So Kid Governor is one of our primary programs that focuses on that, but we also achieve that mission through programs like Connecticut History Day for middle and high schoolers. And we also run the educational programming at Connecticut's Old State House, 1796 historic landmark in downtown Hartford. And our fourth prominent way that we achieve this mission is through the Connecticut Network, which is a TV network that provides gavel-to-gavel coverage of happenings at the state capitol and of the legislative branch. So we use historic and contemporary examples of state government to really inspire action today. I want to thank our partners on this website, on this webinar tonight, the Connecticut Council for the Social Studies and the State Department of Education, as well as our two funding partners, Connecticut Humanities and the Galicki Family Foundation, whose support really helps make the entire program, in addition to this webinar, possible. If you're new to Zoom, which I'm guessing most of you are not, the mute button is in the lower left-hand corner, and we just ask that you keep yourself on mute during the presentation portion of tonight's webinar. You're welcome to introduce yourself or add any questions into the chat feature, and we will get to those at the very end. And you'll also be allowed to unmute if you'd prefer at the end to ask your questions. And so with that, we are going to get started on our webinar. So as I mentioned, tonight's topic is Beyond the Election, year-round CTKG and Civics opportunities. So our goals for today's workshop are to share some of the opportunities for students and classes to engage with the program beyond the November election, to provide you with ideas for recognizing your school's nominee, so the student who you move forward to the statewide election, to talk about year-round opportunities for your nominee and your candidates at the statewide level. And then we have three great educators with us today who are going to share some of what they do in their districts that really makes the Kid Governor program unique for their students. And then we'll have a section at the end on question and answer. I will introduce them in much greater detail later, but our three educators that will be speaking this evening are Christina O'Neill from Long Meadow Elementary School, Joel Senez from Enfield High School, and Sarah Harris from Wethersfield Public Schools. So thank you, Christina, Joel, and Sarah for joining us, and we're looking forward to hearing from you in a little bit. So Beyond the Election, we named this webinar because, because a lot of times the Connecticut's Kid Governor program, because it focuses around an election in November, many think that the program ends then, and it really has the opportunity to be a year-round experience. And so tonight we'll be sharing with you some creative and specific ideas and ways that you can really carry it throughout the school year. And a lot of it begins immediately after the election. So the core of the Kid Governor program is students running on campaign platforms of community issues that they want to see changed. And 7 final candidates that are nominated from across the state move on to the statewide election, which this year will be November 2nd through the 10th. And 5th graders watch those videos, analyze them, and vote to elect their Kid Governor, who will serve a 1-year term. So to build the excitement, just like we all experience on election night every year, and like many of us will be doing, waiting up for the 2020 results in November, we really build the hype around the announcement of the new kid governor. The announcement will be between November 16th and 20th of this year. It's the week after the election. And we do that with a special announcement in collaboration with the winner's school. So the results remain confidential with the exception of the winner's family and school, usually just the administrator and teacher. And the student himself or herself doesn't know either. And in the past, we've done an in-person live announcement at the school, and we will see how that pans out for this year or another creative way that we can break the news statewide. And what's also exciting is we put together a little news segment that announces the winner. So I have a sample to show you this evening, and this is the announcement of our 2019 Kid Governor, Ella Briggs, which was played at her school in November of 2018, just after she won the statewide election. So enjoy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kent Pierce with breaking news out of Hartford. The ballots from fifth graders across Connecticut have been counted, and we have a winner in the 2018 statewide election for Connecticut's Kid Governor, a civics program created by the Connecticut Democracy Center. There were 7 candidates on the ballot, including Ella, whose platform focused on LGBTQ youth safety, Eva, who wanted to help children living in poverty, Hayden, who advocated for limiting the use of electronics, Jason, who promoted children's literacy, Madison, who focused on recycling, Melody, who supported food for all, and Riley, who wanted to bring awareness to children in foster care. Let's go now to the state capitol, where the Secretary of the State, Denise Merrill, is about to announce the results of the election.
I am very excited to announce the election results in the statewide race for Connecticut's Kid Governor. It is my honor to report that the fifth graders of the state of Connecticut have elected Ella Briggs as the new Connecticut Kid Governor. Congratulations to Ella. She is a fifth grader at the CREC Anna Grace Academy of the Arts Elementary Magnet School in Avon. And by the way, congratulations to all the candidates for putting your platforms out there and talking to your fellow students about important issues. Thank you to all of you who participated in the election. This can be a big year for all of you taking action to make Connecticut an even better place to live. Thanks a lot. We look forward to seeing you in the coming year and seeing all your hard work.
So to recap now, Ella Briggs of Anna Grace Academy of the Arts in Avon will serve as the 2019 Connecticut's Kid Governor. Ella ran on a platform of LGBTQ youth safety. To achieve her vision, Ella outlined a 3-point plan of action that kids across Connecticut can participate in. It includes, point 1, raising awareness for the need for more foster families to provide safe and loving homes for Connecticut's LGBTQ homeless youth. Point 2, providing training for Connecticut teachers on how to help LGBTQ youth who are being bullied or encountering other issues. Point 3, creating programs in schools where LGBTQ youth and allies can come together to support each other and be themselves. During Ella's 1-year term, she will work with the Connecticut Democracy Center to create videos and resources that help kids take civic action by raising awareness about LGBTQ youth safety. Those resources will be available on the Kid Governor website, ct.kidgovernor.org. Ella will be officially inaugurated in January at Connecticut's Old State House in Hartford. For more information about Connecticut's Kid Governor and this statewide program, visit ct.kidgovernor.org. Congratulations again to Ella Briggs, and thank you for joining us for this breaking news report. I'm Kent Pierce.
One moment. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what we put together to give our statewide election kind of that really nice ending to it. On the right, you can see was when Ella learned that she was elected as the Kid Governor. So we really build up the momentum and build up the excitement to get that student on a really solid footing in statewide recognition as they prepare to start their terms. We do, and no matter what we put together for this year, we do stream it live online. So there will be opportunities for your students to watch live and learn who has been elected as their new kid governor. So stay tuned as we put together plans based on how schools are reopening this fall to announce our winner. And shortly after the announcement, about 2 months later, we have the official inauguration for Connecticut's kid governor. And the inauguration is an event at Connecticut's Old State House that features not only the elected kid governor, but the 6 finalists from the statewide election who will serve as the cabinet. And they are invited to the Old State House along with their home classes for a day-long and really immersive experience learning all about state government. And as you can see in the picture on the right, it's an opportunity to recognize all 7 students. In person, the kids are recognized in front of about 150 fifth graders, elected officials. In the past, we've had the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of the state, the treasurer, sometimes Senator Blumenthal will attend, or US Congress people, the Commissioner of Education, and lots of dignitaries who really want to celebrate students taking action. And the kid governor takes the official oath of office from the Secretary of the State, as you can see on the left, and then has the opportunity to deliver his or her inaugural address. There's also the opportunity for the outgoing kid governor to deliver their farewell speech, so you get some nice continuity, and we really emphasize the peaceful transition of powers between governors. And afterwards, the students go throughout Connecticut's Old State House, and they have the chance to visit the historic spaces and hear from those who currently serve in the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. So it's a good opportunity to bring the 3 branches of government to life in one of Connecticut's most historic spaces. And one of the most important ways that you can bring kid governor into your classroom and go beyond the election is to follow the kid governor. As many of you know, the kid governor is not a governor for a day program, but the student serves a 1-year term of leadership. And so it's about what they do after the election and after their inauguration that makes it so critical to learning about civics. So in this case, this is our current kid governor, Myra Stanfield from West Hartford, who ran on the platform of standing up for animals in need. And in Myra's case, she worked to put together educational videos. There's a screenshot on the right about helping animals in need and helping animal shelters. And on the left is a screenshot of her blog, which is her primary way to get her message out to her constituents. Her term and her activity has changed just a little bit this year because of COVID, but she's remained active. So in most years, your students are able to follow what the student elected does via the blog, watch educational videos. There's often an in-school component, whether it's a collection drive or hat day or another activity that you can do with your students that supports the Kid Governor's platform. And lots of other creative ways. We have a lot on our website. If you visit ct.kidgovernor.org, you can read about our current and past kid governors and the ways that they've encouraged other 5th graders to really mobilize and take action on their platform. And the student really relies on other 5th graders supporting their work. So I hope you'll keep an eye out for what the 2021 Kid Governor will have as their platform, whether it's a collection drive or a poster contest or something else creative that will really get your students engaged. And now I'm going to pass it to Jacob, who's going to talk to you about a few other opportunities.
All right, thank you, Brian. So one of my favorite opportunities that the students who ran for Kid Governor have the opportunity to participate in is what we call the Meet the Candidates exhibit. And essentially it's a poster exhibit that we put on each year. And students have the opportunity to submit some information about their platform. So they'll do a quick write-up about themselves. They'll tell us what their platform issue was. They'll usually include some kind of background research as well, a did you know section that'll tell you a little bit more about their issue and why they think that issue is so important. And then they'll detail their 3-point platform. So all of those things go onto a poster, which you can see in that photograph on the left to kind of get a sense of what the layout is. And we call it the Meet the Candidates exhibit, but really it's multiple exhibits because as you can see, we have a traveling one that will go to schools and libraries around the state. In fact, it's about to go out, or just went out to a library in Easton, Connecticut. So they're setting it up in Easton, Connecticut right now for the first traveling exhibit stop of the fall season. We have it inside the old State House, and because right now, unfortunately, people can't get inside the old State House, we've also put it on the fence around our building, which you can see on the photo on the right there. So it's a really cool opportunity for students to kind of get their platform out to a wider audience. Oh, and I should say we also have it at the Bradley Airport right now as well. So hopefully going to be seen by a lot of people coming out in and out of the terminal there at Bradley. So again, just a really cool opportunity for students to get their platforms out there, get themselves out there a little bit, and kind of bring their topics a little bit wider than just the school communities. Another opportunity that students have, and another one that I'm very excited about, is the library circuit. This is something that we've been doing for quite a few years now, where the student who wins Kid Governor has the chance to go around to libraries across the state of Connecticut and talk to their constituents, students and their families, about their platform issue and how they've been making a difference so far in their term. So you can see on the left, I believe we've got Ella there at Brian or Sam. Actually, do you know which library that was? Was that Fairfield?
Fairfield.
Okay, thank you. So that's Fairfield Library there. And then you can see on the photo on the right, we have our very first Kid Governor, Elena, visiting a library as well. So we try to get all across the state of Connecticut. We've gone to Fairfield. We've done a lot of stuff in the Hartford area as well. And this upcoming year, we're going to be going to a bunch of places. So we've got, I believe tentatively on the list right now is West Hartford, Stamford, Killingly, Bristol, Wallingford, and Danbury. So we try to get all across the state for the Kid Governor to have a chance to really voice their platform to as many people as possible. And I should say the presentation itself, it includes kind of an intro from our staff just about what the program is. And really it's led by the Kid Governor, who does a presentation about their platform, a question and answer session with their constituents so they can answer any questions that students might have about either what the Kid Governor is doing or how these students and families can support this mission in their own communities. And then there's an interactive activity at the end as well. So you can see again on the right, we've got students kind of drawing in handprints there with ways that they can show kindness, because that was Elena's platform. So again, really interactive opportunity and a great way for our Kid Governor to go out and meet some more constituents and really get the word out about their platforms. And then a third option that is very dear to my heart, because I booked the field trips at Connecticut's Old State House, is coming to the Old State House for a visit. We have a bunch of different field trip options that are great for 5th grade students as well as other elementary school students. We have a chance for students to come and see the historic spaces at Connecticut's Old State House. The photo down in the middle there is one of my favorite rooms in the building. It's the Senate chamber. So the students get to see this really cool historic building where the 3 branches of government actually used to work, which obviously was very closely connected to the Kid Governor program. And of course, what's even more closely connected to the Kid Governor program is the Kid Governor's office. So as many of you probably know, the Kid Governor does have a real governor's office in the historic Old State House. It used to be the governor's office, and we've transitioned it to the Kid Governor's office in the past few years. So that's another opportunity that students who come for field trips have the chance to do, that they can go and see the Kid Governor's office, read more about their platforms as well as the cabinet, so other people who support the Kid Governor. There's usually an interactive activity in the Kid Governor's office as well that students can complete. So it's neat for students to be able to get out and do this. And of Of course, this year it's a little bit more complicated with COVID, so we don't know if we'll be able to host field trips in the fall or not. Fingers crossed, at least for the spring, if nothing else. But if we can't have in-person visits, we'll find other ways to kind of bring the building to students. We'll look for virtual alternatives and try to find ways to make connections between our building and the Kid Governor program. So always trying to get students out to the old State House, because we just feel that it's such an important center for civics here in the state of Connecticut, and obviously home of the Kid Governor program. And also another method to kind of build excitement around the program is to get them started early. So we really recommend trying to get students involved in the program, at least aware of the program, starting in fourth grade if you can. And that's because the sooner that they get it kind of into their ears, into their head, that this is something that they could do, that they could be the next Kid Governor, it really helps build that excitement around the program for them. So this photo on the left is from elementary school in Windsor, I believe, and we had, or they have legislators and other kind of elected officials come out to their school each spring to talk to the students about running for office, how to put together a compelling campaign. So you can see that actually Sean Wooden was speaking to them on that day. So they get some pretty interesting people out there to speak to them and really build that excitement for next year's election. And then the photo on the right, you can see there is some students looking at the traveling exhibit. So again, you can bring the traveling exhibit to your school in the spring, and it gives the fourth graders a chance to see all the students who ran for Kid Governor, maybe identify with a platform or even just a sentence in the About Me section that might resonate with them and get them to think, hey, I can do this too. So again, really trying to start them before fifth grade if we can, because the earlier you can build that excitement, the better it's going to be when they become fifth graders and have the chance to run.
Excellent, thank you, Jacob. So now I'm going to talk for just a couple minutes about the opportunities that are out there for your nominee and your candidate. So the student who you may put forward from your school and what lies ahead for them even after the election. So to start, just some terms that I'll be using today and that we use throughout the program, and a little overview of what they mean. So when we use the word nominee, we're referring to the one student who was nominated from your school for the election for Kid Governor. So it's the student who is put forth, but is not necessarily yet a candidate for the statewide election. The 7 students who move on to the statewide election are what we refer to as the candidates. So they are the 7 finalists statewide. So nominees are at the school level, candidates are at the statewide level. And then we of course have the Kid Governor, so the student who is elected to represent students across Connecticut. After the election, those 6 runners-up, the 6 of the other finalists, then become the cabinet. And I'll talk about the cabinet in a moment, but they are the ones who assist and advise the Kid Governor during their term. And they also work on advancing their own platforms. So these are terms that you'll see throughout the year. If you do host the traveling exhibit at your school this fall, you'll notice that the students are broken up between the nominees and the candidates, or the cabinet members, and the Kid Governor. So just a couple of things to keep on your mind so you understand kind of the difference when we make references to them. So our number one thing, and really the focus of the program, is that civic action is not just for Kid Governors. The concept of the program is to get kids involved in their communities first and foremost, and we've chosen to do that through an election. But that doesn't mean that A, once the election is done, the program ends, or B, that it's only the Kid Governor's responsibility to be engaged. So I have 3 just small examples of students who've participated in the program who go on to take their own action. On the left is Riley Bard, who is from Southington, and she was a member of the Kid Governor's Cabinet last year. And her platform was on helping kids in foster care. And she took this to an incredible degree by working all year to collect items to provide to students who are in foster care. And you can see the little bags that she's assembled. It's a program she started called Fostering Friendships. And she held collection drives in her school, and she went out and fundraised at local businesses and asking friends to help have collections and collect donations. And she's raised, I know she collected last year more than 400 or 500 individual items for a local center, the Klingberg Center in Southington. And she also collected hundreds of dollars to support her campaign platform. What's great about Riley is that she has continued with this effort beyond her term, even as a cabinet member. So she is now in seventh grade. 6th or 7th grade. I can't even follow them anymore. I think she's going into 7th grade. And she was just featured on Fox 61 last Friday for her work. She's a member of the Civic Ambassadors program now through our friends at Everyday Democracy, and she's the youngest Civic ambassador in the state. And as of, I think, this spring, she had raised an additional $660 on her own and with her cheerleading team and with her classmates to support kids in foster care. So it was great to see here's a student who felt so deeply about an issue, did not win Kid Governor, but remained active, carried her platform forward, and right now, 7 months, 8 months after ending her term in the cabinet, is still working on this issue. In the center is Jason Hayes, also going into 7th grade. He was from Pulaski Elementary School in Meriden, and his platform was on children's literacy. And he was committed to building or having little libraries built in his community. And so as a cabinet member, he worked to build awareness around that, get donations and raise money. And in the end, the little box you see next to him is the little library that was built at his school. And his teacher, former teacher, was on one of our webinars early this week, and she said that she still receives donations constantly for his little library on the school property to keep it stocked. He also took it a step further, and at the same time, there was an effort to put little libraries across Meriden, and he got involved with that. And so right now, he manages and helps maintain 6 or 7 libraries across the town by restocking them and keeping them full. So another student who did not win, but he continued that action, and even later on in middle school is still pretty involved. And the photo on the right is a little bit of a teaser. I'm not going to give you too much information about it, but that's a group of students from Long Meadow Elementary School in Middlebury. And Christina later on will be talking about the Long Meadow Service Club. And these are some of the members of that club I think in November of this past year during a visit to the school. Even if your student doesn't make it to the statewide election level or to win Kid Governor, we really encourage you to make a big deal out of their candidacy at the school. We really, again, want to focus on the idea of civic action and civic engagement beyond just who wins the election. And what is such an incredible thought is that just before the election starts in November, you have kids, hundreds of kids all around the state who've developed 3-point platforms and have been nominated either as a finalist in their school or have become the nominee for their school. And it's such a shame if those action plans just fall to the wayside. So we encourage you to recognize the students in your school, especially the student who moves forward from your school to the statewide level, to encourage them and give them the support they need to actually implement their 3 points. On the left is Kylie, who is from Stonington, West Vine Street School, and she was her school's finalist and moved on to the statewide election. And you can see here, this is a picture of her with her state representative, Kate Rotella, who paid a visit to the school and a visit to her classroom to recognize her for her hard work in becoming a nominee for the school. She did move on to be a member of this year's cabinet, but they did a lot like this visit to recognize her even before that was announced. And on the right is a young woman, Olivia, from Enfield, who was Enfield's Kid Mayor. And that's all I'm going to tell you from now. You'll hear from Joel Senez later on about the Kid Mayor program in Enfield. But all of this is to say how important it is to make sure the students feel recognized. The program is not about winning and losing. It's really about them being involved. And then we have the Kid Governor's Cabinet. a few years ago, we really wanted to further emphasize the importance of civic engagement and not making it just about the student who wins. And so we introduced a new component to the program called the Cabinet. So any student who makes it to the statewide election, one of the 7, goes in knowing that they do have a leadership role lined up for the year after. If they're not elected, they will serve as a member of the Cabinet. And the Cabinet has been so much more successful than we ever expected. As you can see, this is this year's Cabinet, Myra Stanfield at the center, surrounded by the other finalists from the election, and this was taken at Myra's inauguration. And the inauguration kicks off a year of them working really as a team to support each other as well as the Kid Governor's platform. So they have regular meetings. When they can meet in person, they meet here at the Old State House at the Cabinet table in the Governor's office, which you can see on the right. This was their meeting back in February. And they report on what they've been doing in their own communities on their platforms. And then Myra shares her updates, or the sitting Kid Governor, to talk about ways that they can also support her platform. What I find really inspiring is that a lot of times they will work to bring each other's messages into their own schools. So last year there was one student, Jason, who you met, who was collecting books. And there was another student who was collecting toiletries. And they each did each other's collections in their school. So she collected books to support literacy in her community, and Jason's school collected toiletries to support, I think those were children living in poverty in his community. So it really helps emphasize, supporting each other and the idea of a team. And in many years, these kids end up being just as active as the Kid Governor is. So in light of the pandemic, the students could not meet in person, but we did hold a virtual meeting back in May. And we also do incorporate team building activities and leadership activities to get the students to develop themselves personally as statewide leaders. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, we host the Inauguration Day. And I bring this up here again because this is an opportunity for the candidates. So a student who makes it to the statewide election knows they will be in the Cabinet, and they will also get to attend Inauguration Day at the Old State House. So the center at the top, you'll see a picture of this year's Kid Governor and Cabinet alongside the 2019 Kid Governor, Ella Briggs, and some of the elected officials who we had with us. And we're so fortunate that we have great support from the 3 branches of government. So this was the 2nd or 3rd year in a row that we had the governor in attendance, and then we also had the lieutenant governor, secretary, treasurer, and then some legislators as well, and Commissioner Cardona. So it gives them a chance to come and support these students, and for these students to really humanize the people who they may see on TV or who they learned about during the program. On the lower left, you can see one of this year's Cabinet members, Dwayne, who is from Windsor, up at a microphone. After the Kid Governor takes the oath of office, we invite the Kid Governor and the Cabinet to come to the front of the room, and we have a little news conference with them. And they answer questions that have been pre-submitted by 5th graders about their platforms, their experience in running, what they hope to achieve, if they ever want to run for political office one day. And each student answers 2 or 3 questions. And what's great is we always have the actual media there. We are fortunate, as well as the support of the state government, we have the support of the major media outlets in Connecticut. So when they hear there's a Kid Governor inauguration, they show up en masse, and they really promote the election widely. And so it's great for the students to not only be speaking to their peers about their experience, but it's also being picked up by news outlets who can then report it back out to the people of Connecticut. And as I mentioned, in the center, you'll see students hearing from a retired Supreme Court justice. So they get to meet individuals who are working in the 3 branches of government. And the right is an aerial photo of the students in the historic courtroom as they prepare for the inauguration of the Kid Governor. And as I mentioned earlier, this is live streamed. So this is something that you can catch online on Facebook and YouTube. And if you are from a school that has a final candidate, The home class of the student is invited, but then the rest of the school is welcome to stream that online. So sometimes schools will watch it together and they'll gather everybody in one room, or each class will watch individually, and family members can also watch online. And I'm going to pass it back to Jacob, who's going to share a couple more ideas with you.
Thank you again. Another great way for students to stay involved after the election is through guest blog posts. So the Kid Governor always has a blog that we kind of help them run throughout their term. And in addition to blog posts fairly regularly from the Kid Governor, we always welcome guest blog posts from other students who ran as well. So if you have a candidate or a nominee who does not become the Kid Governor, we'd still love to hear from them about what they are doing to support their community issue throughout the year. So we've had students submit one post to us. We've had students submit up to, I think, 3 posts throughout the year. So really, as often as you want to keep us updated on what your student is doing, we'd love to hear it. And we're happy to give guidance as to how they should structure it. You know, we can help them look it over to make sure that it's you know, edited well, and we'll make sure it gets up on the blog post. So absolutely send us along anything that your students are doing. And you can see we've got a kind of a screenshot of the blog up there, and you can see a guest post from Daisy. So we're really looking for these things throughout the year, and we'd love to hear what your students are up to. And then again, we have the Meet the Candidates exhibit. So we'll send out an email shortly after the election is over, asking for some of those questions that I talked about earlier, the write-up about the student, about their issue, the 3-point platform, and some kind of background research on their topic. And we turn that into an exhibit. So it's another great way for students to really get their voices heard throughout the year. Because again, it's going to travel to schools around the state, to libraries. We're hoping to keep bringing it back to Bradley Airport each year. So it's a great way to get their platforms out to a wider audience. And if you wanted to have it come to your school, send us an email, send me an email. We're happy to try to get it out to as many different schools as we can.
Thank you, Jacob. And I just want to underscore one point on that. This exhibit, we're very fortunate to have funding from Connecticut Humanities to make it possible. So there is no cost to your students to participate in this exhibit, and there is also no cost to your school to host it. We bring it to you and we pick it up. So all you have to do is make sure you have approval from your administration, and we'll bring it out to you. They're usually for 1-week stretches. So we book them through the fall and into the spring. And this is open to nominees and candidates. So even if your student doesn't make it to the statewide election, they are invited to submit information for this exhibit.
Thank you, Ryan. Those are great points. And also this year we have panels that can be set up outside as well. So we don't know exactly what the fall is going to look like, but if you're interested in having the exhibit for outside your school so students can hopefully still maybe drive by or walk by with their families, we're hoping that's going to be an option this year as well.
And they can be sanitized, which is the best part. So, and we will give you wipes with it. So keep that in mind. So now it's time for our segment on the educator's perspective. We have 3 outstanding Kid Governor educators with us today: Christina O'Neill, Joel Senez, and Sarah Harris. So I'm going to introduce them one at a time, and then I'll let them speak for a few minutes, and then we'll have time for question and answer afterwards from any of our educators or with questions for our staff. So I'm going to start by introducing Christina, who is a library media specialist at Longmeadow Elementary School in Middlebury. She's been teaching for 25 years and has been a library media specialist for the last 6. This will be Longmeadow's 3rd year participating in the Kid Governor program. And today she's going to talk to us about a unique way that her school engages students who created platforms and then ran for Kid Governor in their school-wide primary. So please join me in welcoming Christina.
Thank you very much. So as Brian said before, I tell my students when they participate in this program, is not about winning an election, it's about getting involved. And as the library media specialist, I great position for that. I talk about student engagement issues in our makerspace. We create things for community, like cards and things for elderly or for the veterans. So I'm constantly trying to instill that in them. And so this year, when the students ran, I had about 23 students decide to participate, research their issues, come up with platforms, and give speeches, which I just so blown away that there would be so many 10 and 11-year-olds that are confident enough to get up and give speeches to their peers. And then I write them a letter, you know, after they've given their speech, thanking them for participating and encouraging them to, no matter what happens, know that we are, the principal, Kid Governor Program, and I are available to support them to continue no matter what happens in following through on their platform, because they went through all that effort and it was something that was important to them. So we want to support them and hope that they'll continue to follow through. So this year I had a student who came to me the day after the election, and he said, okay, we want to form a service club. I think that the 23 of us can figure out, we can break ourselves up into 4 groups based on, all 23 of them didn't want to go separate ways and raise money for 23 different things. So they grouped themselves into 4 different categories: a group on poverty, a group about animals, a group about health-related issues, and a group about the environment. And they met every week at their lunch, their recess, whenever they could fit in time to come and meet in the library and come up with plans of what to do. So they started collecting things, collecting donations of gently used clothes, gently used books, sports equipment. They made giving bags for the holidays, so for the homeless shelter in Waterbury. So they created snacks. They collected snacks, hats, gloves, hand warmers, bottles of water, and they put them together in bags with a little note on there from the Long Meadow Service Club. They created, we got some bookcases that we found free online that they painted, and they collected books. And so then we gave the bookcases and the books to a soup kitchen and a homeless shelter. So that was just recently delivered, actually, because of COVID, that had been sitting in my office for the spring. It was just recently delivered. We got a lovely thank you note from the recipients of that. So I'm very blessed. The kids were extremely motivated this year and did terrific things. I wish we had more time with them this year because they were kind of on a roll. And those kids that picked things like the environment, they did campaigns of information. So they created posters, they did you know facts on the morning messages, things like that to get the awareness out to their classmates, to the rest of the kids in the school. And we have a great 5th grade team who supported the kids, and Dr. Shaw is a 5th grade teacher in our building. She has a relationship. She serves at the soup kitchen, and she's also very much into service learning. So she's had her kids, her students, do projects all along. So this just kind of blended in very nicely. A couple of years ago, I saw this program come through on the listserv for the Connecticut Association of School Librarians. And I thought, oh, this seems like a perfect thing to do around election time. We should get involved. And last year was definitely a better year for us, having 1 year under our belt. And so I'm really looking forward to this year and all the new resources to help us if we have to go remote or hybrid or something. I think that it'll be a great way to help us deliver that content. And for the presidential election and all of that in the works, I think it'll be a super year this year. Looking forward to it. But thank you very much. You guys have tremendous resources. The Action Resource Center has great things to help our students continue forward.
Thank you so much, Christina. I have to say, Jacob and I had the really great privilege of going to Long Meadow in the fall, just as the election was happening, and had a chance to hear the student who started the Long Meadow Service Club give a presentation. And it was so phenomenal to see a 5th grader present an entire presentation on his own with the support of his classmates who helped inform it. and really make that sales pitch as to why they should be able and how they should be able to continue moving their platforms forward. And it was such enthusiasm, and the fact that it was student driven, I thought was great. So our next speaker today is Joel Senez. He's the grades 6 to 12 social studies coordinator for Enfield Public Schools at Enfield High School. He has been teaching for 15 years, and this is his district's 4th year participating in Kid Governor. And today he's going to talk about how Enfield runs the Kid Mayor program and how they recognize their town-wide nominee after the Kid Governor program. Joel.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for putting this together, and Jacob and Samantha for all your work that you do on the program. Our kids in Enfield have, our 5th graders and 4th graders in Enfield have really benefited from being involved in this, and we see that in their civic engagement as they get up to us in the high school. So way back when this was first being launched, and I was sitting at one of the workshops, what popped into my head was we're a relatively larger district with 3 intermediate schools. So we have 3 5th grades that are running the program. And my initial thought was, wow, this is gonna be a lot for these kids to go through. If by chance they don't happen to win Kid Governor, then, which is kind of the basis of this workshop, is how do we continue with this? How do we take all this that the kids have put into it and carried it forward? So fortunately, our mayor at the time, and is still our mayor today, has kids in our school system, is always very engaged with our school programs. So I decided I'd run it by him, the idea of taking whoever wins the Enfield Kid Governor primary election, and if they don't win the statewide Connecticut Kid Governor, making them the Enfield Kid Mayor for the year. And he was ecstatic. He loved the idea of it. He was willing to take it on fully. It does create some other challenges. As I said, we have 3 intermediary schools. So we do have to go through a primary process in narrowing down who our candidates are going to be. So we actually start the program with our 4th graders, and they do the first 5 lessons in 4th grade. So when they get to 5th grade, we pick up there, which gives us a couple of extra weeks in the fall, because it is a bit of a crunch to get everything done once you get to know the kids in September and then get through the whole process in October. There is a bit of a time crunch. So that gives us a little more flexibility for each of our classrooms to first narrow down their candidate. And then each school does a school-wide primary day, which, Brian, I think you've been there for a couple of those, and it really does have the feel of a convention, you know, a party convention. The kids get so excited for it to narrow down who their nominee is going to be from their school. And then we send out videos to all the intermediary schools in the district, and they vote on who the Enfield Kid Mayor is going to be and who our nominee is going to be for governor. So our plan is that if our candidate does win the governorship, then the runner-up will serve as the Enfield Kid Mayor for the year. And we've been lucky. I mean, it is a lot to ask of the teacher, because the teacher ends up being the one that coordinates things for the kid as far as going to the town council meeting, going to our school board meeting, and any of the events that our Kid Mayor is invited to throughout the year. But it's been awesome to see how much the town has embraced the winner each year. So this will be our 4th year doing it. We've had 3 Enfield Kid Mayors. And Olivia, who you just saw, continued with her platform actually to the statewide level. And she actually continued lobbying for her idea of having 1 hour of physical activity in all elementary schools in the state. Met with our state legislatures, and then they brought her to the state house to continue lobbying state legislatures at the state house. So some real authentic civic engagement. I will say the majority of what the Kid Mayor does is ceremonial, but it is awesome to see our Kid Mayor at the tree lighting ceremony at Christmas. They go through an official inauguration at our town council meeting. After they're elected in November every year, they participate in our events around Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And one of the parts of our program that I'm most proud of is our interaction between our high school students and our students at the 5th grade level. Our high school students come down and they work with the kids on developing their platforms and putting together their speeches and putting together their campaign videos. So that's all organized through a course we have at the high school titled Community Action Learning. But what our Kid Mayor has taken to is part of that course and part of our youth vote program at the high school is we do a voter registration drive every year. So our Kid Mayor also participates in that and tries to, register as many voters as possible, and especially trying to convince our seniors to ensure that they register to vote before they walk out the door. So that's just a little overview of our Kid Mayor program. Feel free to reach out to me and let me know if you have any other questions on kind of the logistics of everything. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you so much, Joel. I really admire what you and your district are doing. And you mentioned I was able to go to a primary at Prudence Crandall School. And I just wanted to quickly share some photos that I pulled up from the way that Enfield builds up their excitement in their school. This was at Prudence Crandall, and they called it the Prudence Primary. I don't know if it's still called the Prudence Primary, but they brought all the 5th graders and the finalists for the school. You can see them all seated up on the stage into the gymnasium, and they had their campaign signs for who they thought the students should support. And then you heard a speech from each of them about what their focus was and what their campaign platform was. And I thought it was fantastic because all the teachers were dressed in red, white, and blue for the primary. They were all decorated up, and then they had voting and polling stations so the kids could go and vote in the primary. And one of the best videos I think we ever captured. This is, I've lowered the volume, but this kind of shows you the enthusiasm of the students as they're waiting to hear from their people. So all this is to say, Enfield is doing an awesome job of getting these kids excited and pumped, and then by continuing it beyond the election to give their students the chance to be Kid Mayor, I think is great. And it's also a good opportunity to have a positive relationship between the schools and the local government and to get their support. So thank you, Joel. And our third speaker tonight is Sarah Harris, who has been one of our long-standing cheerleaders of the Kid Governor program. Sarah is the Instructional Supervisor of Technology for Wethersfield Public Schools. This is her 8th year in education, and in her current role, as well as in her previous role with Portland Public Schools, she's worked to incorporate Kid Governor right into the district's 5th grade curriculum to ensure that students will participate in the program year after year. So today she's going to talk about how the program was incorporated into curriculum, as well as how it aligns well with the Connecticut social studies frameworks. So thank you, Sarah.
Of course. Can you see my screen? Hopefully.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Brian. So Brian asked me to come today to talk a little bit about embedding the Connecticut Kid Governor in your social studies curriculum. So a number of years ago, when I was a middle school teacher in Portland and also serving as the K-5 curriculum specialist for social studies, we learned about this really awesome program called Kid Governor. I learned about it at the Connecticut Council for the Social Studies Conference. I was very excited. And we went back to the school and started talking to the 5th grade teachers. And as we started talking about it, there were a couple of challenges, right? So I think whenever we talk about a new program or a new initiative at a school, particularly when we're talking about elementary content areas, the biggest challenge that always comes up is time, right? Because the reality is that we have only a finite number of minutes in the day, and those instructional minutes are very tight in any classroom. And we recognize that in many classrooms across the state, the reality is social studies minutes are not always as abundant as some of us social studies and history educators would like. And so recognizing the reality of that, and also recognizing as we talk to fifth grade teachers, that the Connecticut Social Studies frameworks really focus on American history as the core of the fifth grade social studies curriculum, we started thinking about, how do we answer this question? How does the Connecticut Kid Governor program fit into our fifth grade curriculum? As we started digging deeper into the frameworks and really looking at the program, we saw a seamless alignment. We saw a seamless connection. So one of the things that the framework does is look at this idea of taking a thematic approach to how we teach social studies and history. And specifically in fifth grade, really looking at this idea of cultural diversity and developing an American national identity and how that came to be. And as we thought about the democratic process, isn't the democratic process so much of what we talk about when we talk about this idea of this American national identity? So we started thinking about, can we throw away this question of how do we fit this program in? How do we fit it in and make time for it? And instead start thinking about how can we embed it and make it part of what we already do, make it part of our curriculum. If we look at any of the social studies frameworks for any grade, we know that inquiry is at the heart of social studies instruction in Connecticut. And when we talk about Dimension 4, that taking action piece, any teacher I've talked to has said, hey, that's the most exciting piece, but sometimes it's also the hardest. How do we make that come alive and make that happen in our own classroom? And I think for us in fifth grade, when we started working on this in Portland, and since as I moved to Wethersfield, as we've started looking at the same thing, Kid Governor was a very obvious and clear answer. Kid Governor is the embodiment of taking action. It's the embodiment of civic action for our students. And it really gives our students the opportunity to walk through the entire inquiry process, all 4 dimensions, in a way that very few other programs would allow our kids at that age to do. So for us, as we started thinking about how this fits in the curriculum, this seemed to be something we could very clearly embed as part of that thematic element, but also as part of our inquiry, focus on inquiry instruction. So as we looked at this in Portland, and as we have looked at this in Wethersfield, this is where we landed. So our first unit in Portland for the first unit of social studies, and in the future, we were hoping to roll this out this year in Wethersfield, but as we all know, plans in every realm have changed, so we won't be rolling this out as quickly as we had hoped. But our first unit in Portland really focused on this idea of civic responsibility and American identity through Kid Governor, and that's also what we have written and planned in the Wethersfield curriculum. We plan to use the lessons that are provided through Kid Governor. There's a fantastic unit plan that really allows this to come to life for teachers and makes this seem more practical in the classroom. So sort of practical application pieces there through the materials provided by the Kid Governor program. The idea being, we get the students thinking about this idea of American identity. We get the students thinking about this idea of civic responsibility in a really practical, modern sense. So for them, for me as an individual, what is my responsibility? How am I a part of all of this? Before we start going back to, okay, so we understand how things are today. How did we get here? We found in the first year that we've tried this out in Portland and hopefully this year in Wethersfield, we've found that it gives kids a context, right, for this history. We often find that history for especially our younger learners feels very much like a story, like something that maybe wasn't real. This helps to ground the early U.S. history that is central to the fifth grade social studies curriculum. It helps to ground that in a modern day reality for our students and helps them to make those connections to themselves as individuals in 21st century America. So the CTKG toolkit for nominating and voting classes has provided a unit plan, and that unit plan is what we used for the first unit of the Kid Governor program. It's nicely aligned. It actually doesn't start until early October, which is great for our teachers as they're trying to figure out where all this fits in, and in most cases aligning it with science units, because science and social studies often take turns in elementary classrooms. We found that the timing actually works really nicely for fitting right in as a social studies unit. For our students, once they finish this first unit, they move into the more traditional early U.S. history pieces. When I was in Portland a number of years ago, I was incredibly privileged to be able to watch one of our own 5th grade students win the Kid Governor election in the 2018 Kid Governor election. It was incredibly exciting. I certainly can't take credit for it. One of our fantastic 5th grade teachers, Joe Santaveneer, did an incredible job really leading the students through this program for the first time that we were really trying it out as part of the curriculum. And I got to watch from start to finish, and I saw, in a smaller sense, we didn't have a large full school event like Enfield did, but I got to see in a smaller sense that excitement in the classroom, and then to go to the inauguration and watch these students taking part in the political process. You said earlier, Brian, you used the word humanize, and as I think about what this program does for kids, I think it really does. It humanizes the political process for them in a way that it's often inaccessible to 5th grade students, and you've developed something really exciting and really cool. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was great. And I think you're right. That's why, I mean, it came up in, I think, Monday's webinar. I can remember back to kindergarten, the day that the governor came to visit our school. And it was something where the people who you hear about on TV suddenly became human, and it gives the opportunity for kids to have a really authentic experience directly. So thank you for that. And it's great because there are several districts across the state who've incorporated the program right into their curriculum and found ways to prepare for it and make sure that it's embedded each and every year. And as the program continues to grow and new components get introduced, then we know that there's even more opportunities for us to draw strong connections with what districts are putting in their curriculum. So thank you to our 3 educators for speaking with us this evening. I'm now going to turn it over to Samantha, who is going to ask some questions that have been pre-submitted or have been submitted directly to her through the chat. And some may be to staff or to our educators. So if you do have any questions, please drop them in the chat to Samantha.
All right, so our first question is, since we talked about the blog that we run for the Kid Governor every year, do we accept or consider any blog posts from nominees or students who ran but maybe didn't get past their school primary to be put up on the blog?
That's a really great question. So the blog has really evolved in recent years. It started off as the primary mechanism for the Kid Governor to communicate their platform directly to students and to their constituents. And then when we introduced the cabinet, we expanded it to allow the cabinet to contribute. And we would absolutely love to get blog posts from students who, whether or not they ran in their school's election or if they moved on as a nominee, student action is so important. If they're interested, we'd be happy to. When the Kid Governor and the cabinet go through their initial, kind of like a training orientation as to their responsibilities, we give them guidelines on how to create a blog post. So how to structure it, what to include, an ideal word length, the tone you should use. And so we would be more than happy to share those resources if you have a student in your school who would like to write a blog post. And not only does it go up on the blog, but Samantha, who manages the social media, shares all the blog posts out on our social media. So it will give great visibility. So especially if your student is doing a project actively and wants to share what they're working on and get the news out there, more than happy to post their information up there.
And kind of a connecting question here, is there any other way that our team at Connecticut's Kid Governor recognizes students either as candidates, as nominees, or students who are taking action? And I think as the webmaster, more or less, I can say yes, we try as much as we can whenever we get things submitted, both from candidates, nominees, and we'd love to hear from students who didn't maybe get past their school primary. On our national website, try and share that. Oh, 1 second. I'll pull it up in a second. We always try and highlight different students who are doing different things in their communities that really show what taking action is all about. So now it's not just the Connecticut students getting recognized, although we do have a Connecticut student recognized on the national page right now, but we have a community spotlight where we can recognize students from all 3 states that are participating in the work that they're taking in their communities. So we really do try and recognize students both online, through the website, through social media, through the blogs. So it's not just, okay, you did Kid Governor, that's it. We really try and make it so students are excited and have something that, you know, you can screenshot and save later for kind of looking back at what you did during elementary school.
And if I could just add on to that, you know, it's a great opportunity to share these opportunities with your students before they run or even after they run, because it's good for them to have these as incentives. So to know, hey, if you decide to move forward with your platform, there's a chance you could write a blog post, you could be featured on the website. And I remember, you know, early on visiting one of the classrooms of kids running for Kid Governor, and it meant just as much that they were running as Kid Governor as it meant that they were going to be on YouTube. They were going to be celebrities if they had their video put up. So using that as an incentive, like if you decide to run, you might have this, is something to consider.
All right. And the next one I think is especially for Sarah and Joel. How did you get buy-in from your town or district to really include Kid Governor, or to be able to do Kid Mayor, or to build it into the units?
So I'll start. So we were lucky that the timing of adopting the Kid Governor program was right when we were revising our 5th grade curriculum anyhow. So it just made perfect sense that this would be our launch unit, much like Sarah designed as well, to start 5th grade. So I think the teachers that were involved with the curriculum writing process were craving some more organization around social studies anyhow prior to going into it. So they've all been, you know, really excited. And then I think once we did it the first year, which was, there was a lot of apprehension and it felt like a lot for them. But once they saw that, and they saw videos like what Brian showed you happening at each of their schools, it was a done deal. And then to be able to bring that to our school board and have the kids sit down in front of them, I don't know how you could tell them no after looking at that and after, you know, listening to their speeches and how passionate they were.
And I would second everything Joel said. I think the timing was absolutely perfect in that we were all starting to look at revising our curriculum. And so this was sort of a natural fit. And I think that that Joel is absolutely right, and that those videos and seeing what was happening with the Kid Governor is the part that is necessary for teachers to get excited about it. I was sitting next to the 5th grade teacher who first participated in the program at the conference I saw the Kid Governor speak at, and it wasn't hearing about it or seeing you know, some of the signs. It was seeing the first Kid Governor, Elena, I believe her name was. She got up and spoke. And that was it. The teacher sitting next to me said, "We're doing this. We have to do this. This is amazing." And so really hearing from the kids, I think, is what brings it to life.
All right. And the next question is, have any of the Kid Governors continued their platforms after their terms?
Yes, that's a good one too. I think right now one of our Kid Governor All-Stars is Riley Bard, who I mentioned earlier, who focused her platform on helping kids in foster care. And 2 things to note is it's interesting to watch as some students choose an issue that impacts them personally, and others who like learning about the issue impacted them personally. Because it seems we've found that most platforms, at the very core of them, is the idea of kindness and showing kindness towards others. And Riley had heard about foster care, and she had a family experience as well with an extended family member in foster care. And that just motivated her to run on this platform. And when you hear about the topic of helping kids in foster care, it just isn't necessarily the first thing that you would think comes to the mind of a 5th grader. But you know, she is committed. We've connected her with the Department of Children and Families, and so she has done a lot of work with them. And she now wants to be a foster parent as soon as she turns the right age. She's continuing with fundraisers. She's continuing with activities. And as she shared with Fox 61 on Friday, she's engaging her cheerleading team, others in her community, to not only raise money, but they were doing special activities where They got special shoelaces from DCF, and she had her cheerleading team put them in their shoes and take promotional pictures, and then they created a video to raise awareness about the need for adoption and foster families. So, and I also want to say our first kid governor, Elena, she did continue. Sarah said she was quite a spunky little kid, and she was such an inspiration that first year. And she has continued her involvement. She is on the Kid Governor Advisory Committee, and she remains active in her school community. She has continued with that idea of kindness in different ways beyond just what she did in her platform. I talked with her on the phone last week. I think we talked for about 45 minutes because not only is she interested in the program and how she can support it as our first kid governor, but she's really attuned to what's going on in the news and to politics and how government works. And so it's great to be able to have conversations with students who now look at elections differently. They look at politics differently. They look at the news differently. So yes, and what's wonderful is we are able to provide the opportunities and the encouragement for students who do continue beyond their terms. If that answered the question, I think it did.
Yep, it did. So our next pre-submitted question is, what happens at the cabinet meetings?
Jacob or Sam, would one of you like to take this?
Sure, I can chime in for a second here, and then Sam can, I'm sure, add some stuff as well. So typically we try to make them fairly serious, but also fun for the kids as well. So they'll sit down at the cabinet table. They will talk about what they've been doing in their communities. There's usually an icebreaker activity as well, just to kind of lighten the mood. But they follow kind of the order of things. Brian or Sam, what's the term I'm thinking of here at the
An agenda?
Well, an agenda, yes. Well, they kind of follow the speaking rules and stuff. Like they are
Robert's rules.
Thank you, Robert's rules. So we try to keep it formal for them to make it seem very serious, but we also have done things like scavenger hunts and stuff. So we try to keep it fun. I'll turn it over to Sam because Sam probably has a better sense. She documents all these things with photos and stuff. So she can tell you more details.
Yeah, so the kids probably honestly get a little sick of me during the cabinet meetings because I'm constantly shooting photos that we can use to really promote what they're doing and to kind of have for our records highlights of the incredible things that these kids are doing, and then showing the work that they're doing to both promote the program to the next group of fifth graders and to promote the program in their own communities. So like Jacob said, we'll have them do icebreakers. So they've done scavenger hunts that are meant to get them a little bit refreshed in what the three branches of government are and how they function. They go through the whole building, so they get not only the civics and three branches of government components to make sure that they remember what they learned in lesson 1 and 2 for the program, but also they get a little bit of Connecticut history in there too. We'll take them through our Histories All Around Us exhibit so they can get a little bit of a connection with Connecticut's famous citizens like Mark Twain. But they'll also learn a little bit about the legend of the Charter Oak, or they'll learn about the legislators who used to work in our building. But beyond that, they share with each other different ideas on how to support the Kid Governor's platform or how to connect together on different programming that they want to do. So if one student has a platform and they have an idea, another student might give an idea on what else they can do to kind of support that, or what they could do in each other's schools to try and make those connections. We've also invited nominees in this year to come and be a part of some of the cabinet meetings so that they can have a little bit of a voice as the constituents. This year we had our virtual cabinet meeting, and students were invited in who also had animal themed platforms to help vote for which posters would make it on to our poster contest, which should be announced soon, who the winners are. So cabinet meetings are very busy, just like the real governors, I'm sure, but ours are probably a little bit more fun.
I also want to add in, we also do some personal and leadership development during these. So a lot of that comes with the way we structure the meeting and we structure the team building activities or icebreakers. But we also go over things like how to properly shake someone's hand and how to make eye contact when you're speaking with someone. Or if you meet an elected official, how to address them and how to speak clearly. So a lot of lessons that get applied during their term, if they make a visit with us to the state capitol, or if we bring in a guest speaker to a meeting, but also things that can help them in their personal lives. We probably have time for maybe one more question.
Well, Brian, what you were just talking about connects with one of the last questions we have here, which is, have students, either candidates, nominees, or the kid governor, been invited to any or given any special opportunities, been invited to any events that maybe aren't normally open to kids in Connecticut?
That was the cabinet or the kid governor?
Yep.
So I think there definitely are great opportunities that open up for the students. I think one of the most special events that students get to go to is typically opening day at the General Assembly. And that's been going for the last few years, where the kid governor is invited to attend and be a special guest at the state capitol on a day when, except for the media, it's really not open to the public beyond the executive and the legislative branches, and sometimes representatives from the judicial branch. 2 years ago, Ella Briggs was invited to opening day, which also coincidentally was the governor's inauguration. So it was kind of nice for not only Governor Lamont to be there, but the kid governor was in attendance, and she had the chance to meet past Governor Jody Rell, and I believe there was another past governor there as well. So it was a good opportunity for her to connect with other governors. And then this year, someone from the Children's Committee in the House of Representatives invited the entire cabinet to attend opening day. So this year we had 3 members of the cabinet plus Kid Governor Myra going and being at the House of Representatives opening session, and then at the joint convention between the House and the Senate. And then they had a private meeting with Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz just after. So a lot of support from the state government and opening up doors for special events for them to attend.
And just one more that I wasn't even on the team yet for, but it's one of my favorite things I think the kids get to experience was, I think 2016, Kid Governor Elena and Kid Governor Jessica got to be at the Electoral College voting for the state of Connecticut, which again, something kids are not usually either aware of or and are definitely not invited to. So that's a really cool experience for them to get to have. So, and the fact that they get to actually interact with their legislators, which I think a lot of us sometimes forget who our legislators are. So it's nice that the kids now get these kind of one-on-one opportunities to speak with them and are really treated almost as equals from a lot of what we've seen.
Yes, very good point. Thank you, Sam. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Let me throw up our very last slides. If you are around tomorrow evening, I hope you will join us for our final session, Learning from Colleagues. And we have 3 additional educators, fantastic educators and supporters from across our state, who are going to share some of their successes and challenges and answer questions and be of assistance to you and others from across Connecticut. So I hope you will join us tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock. And if you aren't able to make it, or if you missed one of this week's earlier webinars, you can find them all recorded and posted on YouTube, and they are all shared on social media. So as we've asked every night this week, will your student be the next Kid Governor? And I appreciate you being with us and continuing your support of this program and bringing it to your students. And just maybe one of your students will have their picture up there next year when we meet with our educators in the fall. So I want to thank you for joining us. I know that this is a very challenging time of the year and a challenging situation dealing with this pandemic. And it means a lot to us that you are going to continue to bring Kid Governor into your classrooms. I know you're facing a lot of uncertainty, but we can tell you for certain that the Kid Governor program will happen this fall. We've been working very hard to develop the resources and tools that you will need to implement them in hybrid or virtual settings, and we are here to help you all along the way. So if there's any questions you have or anything you need, you can email any one of us. Our information is also on the contact page of the website, and we are here to help. So please be in touch, and we wish you all the best as you move towards the start of the school year. Enjoy your last few days, and I hope you all stay well. Thanks for joining us tonight.